In 2004, Star Wars Battlefront was released. One day in the late 2000s, my dad came home with a copy and we booted the game up and spent a few hours playing the game together. From then on until I was about 7, at least one of us played the game once a week. Recently I thought to myself, why not go back to the game and see if my feelings toward the game were just pure nostalgia? I'm glad to say that they weren't. Let's talk about it. Development for Star Wars Battlefront first started at Pandemic Studios in 2002. Greg Birod, who was the executive producer on Battlefront, said that we wanted to create an online shooter title for the Xbox, PS2, and PC, which would allow for team strategy and would feature battles and worlds from every one of the 6 Star Wars films. God, I miss when there were only 6. Other devs had this to say.
We've all watched the movies and seen the battles for a long time, but now it gives you a chance to kind of live the battles in a whole new way.
Most characters use a common animation set due to concerns with hardware limitations at the time. There were 3 main voice actors: Tamora Morrison as the clones, Tom Kane as Admiral Akbar and Yoda, and Nick Jameson as Darth Sidious. LucasArts released an Xbox-exclusive playable demo on the Star Wars Trilogy DVD set. The demo included one level, the Battle of Endor, which is also the demo level released for the PlayStation 2 Jam Pack disc. In 2004, Pandemic Studios put out mod tools for the game, and even though their release was not supported by LucasArts, it made a mod scene that still exists to this day, and in my eyes, assisted in helping the game stay as popular as it has. In this game, no matter what size you choose, you will have 5 classes to choose from. Regular infantry, heavy, some sort of grenade launcher normally, pilot, sniper, and special. Special soldiers have the most variation out of all the classes from each faction. I mainly use the regular infantry because it is the simplest and most versatile. Every class has their advantages, and the infantry's strength is their lack of over-specialization. Jack of all trades, master of none. This is the class you will probably use the most due to its effectiveness in most encounters throughout a map. Before a campaign mission, the voices of Akbar, Yoda, and Sidious normally all show up as the people who give you your instructions throughout your mission. Admiral Akbar for the Rebel Alliance, Yoda for the Republic, and Darth Sidious for the CIS and Empire. The look of the game is just so well done. Even with the technology available at the time, the devs were still able to create a game that looks beautiful for the time it was made in, and in some people's eyes, it had a much better style than the 2015 remake due to how distinctive it is. I'm going to be mainly focusing on the individual maps from the campaign and the instant action additional maps that stand out because the story is mainly just battles from the movies, and that's not really the best part about this game. I'm not going to talk about every map, just the ones that stood out the most to me. Geonosis is aggravating, which sucks because it is set up very well. In fact, I think it's better here than in the next game. The bad part is the fact that you have to destroy the CIS ships to win. I have played this map over and over and never beat it through just killing droids. To be fair, you have to plan for every map and you can't just run around like John Wick, but it is mind-numbing to just sit there and shoot the ships with nothing happening. I did love going into the Separatist Council Chamber. This map just sort of brings it to life and it feels really movie accurate. The Oath of Gunga map was one of my favorites. It manages to be grungy and grand at the same time, which is really odd. The aesthetic is captured so well from the movie and the map is made so much better for it. Snipers are the most effective when using the raised platforms in the middle and are pretty useless otherwise. There's a lot of dogfighting and one of the best aspects of the game is present, a third arm. In this case, the Third Army is the Gungan warriors, but darker looking than their counterparts, who are present during the rounds on the Naboo plains. These Gungans have grenades that explode on impact, and those can get annoying, but if you avoid the grenades and stay out of the range of their spears, they are pretty easy to take down. If you go the route of trying to take the outer command post to pincer in like on Bespin, you will get annihilated. Speaking of Bespin, Cloud City in particular, the upper levels are shaped in a big U, taking the 3 command posts located up there will be integral to winning on this map. Once here, you can snipe down at the enemy team and they will be easy picking. But taking the command post can be difficult and you'll more than likely die often. But once you establish position, winning is an absolute breeze. The Bespin Platforms map is one of the best examples of ground-to-air combat that I've ever played. It's so seamless and still holds up to this day. Meeting the army head-to-head on one of the bridges will more than likely lead to a lot of kills but not a lot of winning. Just like on the other maps, you have to be aggressive early. Hop in a ship, shoot the enemy turrets, then land and capture their command posts. Destroying the turrets has a twofold purpose. Keep the turrets from shooting at you while you take the post, and if the turrets are still active, they will shoot your comrades as they engage in the space battle. I love this map, and honestly, playing it is what convinced me to make this video. It's the closest we'll get to seamless space-to-ground combat for a while, and it's just wonderful. The best word to describe Kamino is immersive. Some of the best battles in the Clone Wars in both Legends and TCW occur on Kamino, so as a child I would pretend I was part of the 501st and was defending the Django sample. With that kind of nostalgia, I expected to be disappointed with the map, but it lived up to my memory. The combat can be cramped if you find yourself fighting on a bridge, and if you're trying to fight up a ramp, you will die most times. You will not fight up the ramp, and if you do, you'll die at the top. You just gotta throw bodies at the problem until you break through. The cover here is really sparse, but this isn't a jump from cover game, so I'll let it slide, but it is annoying when you're running around and just get annihilated by a turret. The platforms and facilities have the best encounters, and that's what made me like the map the most. The islands of Kashyyyk are really interesting because it's almost like Kamino, but instead of ramps being man-made, or really Kaminoan-made, they're just slopes, and most of the fighting occurs at the top of the island. In the campaign mission, you'll only fight against the Wookiees as the droids, because Ki Adi had not called attention to it yet. This is another great example of the game building on the lore of the Star Wars universe. The docks of Kashyyyk are pretty boring. You'll spend most of your time sniping droids for the most part. If you enjoy sniping and want to get better at it, this is the map for you. If not, you'll be bored, at least in my experience. There isn't a ton to do, but if you really want to, you can go down to the lower levels, and if you're better than me, which you probably are, you won't die in like a minute. The Dune Sea map on Tatooine was really made by the Tusken Raiders. They can get annoying though, and sometimes you will get where Anakin was coming from. The fighting is pretty concentrated and fast-paced, and you won't have to go far to re-enter combat after death, unlike some maps on Tatooine. Taking this Hutt command post was the highlight of playing this map. Something about just running down in there and taking out whatever stormtrooper was just so fun.
Jabba's Palace is the exact map I'm talking about when I say that you might have to go far to re-enter combat, which is odd given how it's a smaller map. I think it has to do with the passageways. Finding them and looking for shortcuts is kinda cool, but it can get a little annoying. The palace is still fun regardless of that, with fighting in pools and being able to shoot Jabba. I don't really mind not being able to kill him, but if you go up to him, you will get dropped through a trapdoor to someone you should be able to kill, the Rancor. The Rancor should be hard to kill, but still possible. I would really love to have a mid-battle boss fight like that. I'm sure there's a mod for it somewhere.
The Battle of Endor. This is the end of the final campaign, and it's really wonderful. The speeder bikes are cool, but they don't really maneuver well, and you're better off just running unless you're skilled with it. ATSTs are running around, but they won't have a ton of effect on the battle because Ewoks have set traps like in the movie. The shield bunker is hard to get into due to the turrets, and it's really not worth the death risk because I still haven't figured out how to destroy it or take it over, even though some people online call it a secondary objective, which I don't really understand. All in all, not the best map, but a fun one and a fitting end to the main story of the game. Third-party armies are where this game truly shines. If you are a droid attacking Kashyyyk, expect the clones and the Wookiees to meet you. It adds another dimension of life and realism to both the game and the Star Wars galaxy as a whole. It makes sense that the people who are in armies would fight against invaders along whichever faction is trying to defend them. When you fight in the Dune Sea, the Tusken Raiders are defending their territory. That's their moisture farmer to raid. I genuinely think that without them, some maps would feel empty, but with them, it feels like a piece of lived-in world that you are only catching a glimpse of. Growing up watching the Gungans defend their homes against the droids, and then be those same droids, this time fighting both the Gungans and the clones, was a great experience. The droideka is really interesting because at first it seems invincible. At first I could only damage it when it moved or had its shield down. If there was an important point that I had to get to help win the match and a droideka was there, I just couldn't get by it. Playing against them on a bridge on Bespin was horrible. It was similar to how Republic Commando showed the threat of super battle droids and made fights against them hard to show how much of a problem they were in the actual war. So after a while of this, I took a look at the loadouts available to me as a clone. EMP grenades were there the whole time. All I had to do was slow down and really pay attention. Up to that point, I had just picked the one with the best gun for the situation, but by taking a minute to observe, I was rewarded.
That's right.
I kinda wish that in instant action you could choose the side. You can only choose which war you play in. You can kinda choose because if you play some maps from the campaign, then you can play as the opposite in instant action. But the maps not in the campaign have no choice. Again, the mechanics are similar for both sides, so I really wish the option was there. Sometimes things devolve into a grenade off at times. It's rare, but the combat will get really intense and then I'll get bounced off the ceiling and thrown into another room. Battlefront is a wonderful game that still stands to this day. In a gaming world that is pivoting towards live service games with no soul behind them, it is nice to experience something with so much love put into it. When the devs talk about the game, it sounds like they're talking about a child of theirs that they're proud of. That feeling shines throughout this game. I would recommend anyone who can play this game to give it a shot.